Hey, everybody, Kevin here with Pursuing Pixels, and welcome back to another edition of Save It for the Cast. And as per usual, you know the drill by now. I'm going to be kicking the ball over to this week. It's just going to be Randall and I for a little mostly video games chit-chat. We actually talk a bunch about some games. I haven't had a ton of time to play them quite yet, or even any time to play some of them quite yet, but we talk about a few games from some of our pals that we've met over the years in the Discord. In particular, we really talk about a lot of Ando, or I should say Ando from Ohsat Games, who's made Go Go Pogo Girl. Most recent game, Kid Bubblegum, which I've played just a tiny bit of. But that's kind of what got the ball rolling with just like kind of ranting and raving about how good his games are. I guess not ranting, but raving about how good his games are. Our pal Johan Peitz actually just released a game, talk a little bit about some of his stuff as well. And also, I guess I'll just give a quick shout out here, something that we didn't get a chance to talk about in another game that I've had just a quick second to play, like a couple quick runs and not even fully understand what's going on. But our pal Sebastian Lind, and we've talked about cards with personalities from him a bunch of times in the past. Both the Pico 8 version and like the full proper Steam version or whatever you want to call it. But he just put out a new game as well called Fungus Reaper. And it's like a top-down roguelike situation. Again, I've only played like 2 runs and not even proper because I was like, oh, I think I kind of skimmed through some of that tutorial stuff. So I got to reread because you can do this like teleport move that is on like a reset timer. But basically the core conceit of the game, it's like a top-down, dungeon crawling roguelike kind of situation, at least the best that I can tell. And you're kind of like roaming around, and then you'll see enemies on like the overworld map, and you'll kind of bump into them to initiate a battle. And then it goes to this new kind of top-down grid, same deal, but like a little more zoomed in almost. And then you start battling these like waves of enemies that are raining down, almost like a match 3 puzzle kind of situation. Like they're coming down from the top of the screen, and if they reach the bottom of the screen, they do damage to you, kind of like it's almost like if they cross that finish line. But you can, like, again, teleport around the screen once you're in this battle mode on a timer, but then you can just like attack enemies. And then as you attack and kill enemies and beat them, almost like Pokemon style or something, you like your Monster Ranch or whatever, I don't know, you get like some new creatures or fungus, creatures or whatever that you can plant on your, it's almost like ends up playing a little more like a tower defense game then in that case, once you have a few. I think at least I've only been able to have about 3 of them in my like party or whatever you want to call it at a time, and then be able to drop those around and kind of play them. Okay, I'm going to put this one over here that has this effect on the enemies. This one, like, acts more like a shield to just absorb damage so that I can have more time to get over there. It's a really interesting game that I truly have not played enough of to really say anything much about how it works all that much. So I probably will talk about it some more in the future because I really am digging what I've played so far. I love the music, love the vibes. It's no surprise being that it's another game from Sebastian Lind, and I'm such a huge fan of his stuff. But yeah, just awesome stuff. And then Randall and I will end up veering into some like retro stuff, some Mario stuff, just all sorts of video game chit chat from there. And then really the other stuff that I've been playing as of late is actually just yesterday we finally did our Mario Kart 8 marathon, now that all the DLC tracks are out. So there are, I believe, if we did the math correct, there's 96 courses. And yesterday we got together around noon. Actually, it was more like 2 o'clock by the time we got started with all the technical issues, which I will say, we've had a lot of technical issues with like the internet online play with Mario Kart in the past. And we ended up finding like an article or a video or something online that said, try like deleting all the wireless like networks that you have saved on your Switch. And even the one that you're currently using, delete them all and just reset up the one that you're trying to connect to. And then we did that. And to play it safe, we didn't do like any long tournaments. We just did each like 4-pack of tracks at a time and then recorded our numbers just in case we got disconnected. But actually, once we reset all that stuff, we never got disconnected again for the rest of the day. And we played for about 9 hours, we left around 10 o'clock. So I guess it was like 8 hours. We took a bunch of breaks, and then we ordered like a huge pizza from the local place. I brought a couple 6-packs over, which is so weird that I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, I really love like drinking these Michigan beers all the time, and I literally never had a Michigan beer before I moved to Chicago, and then started like, enjoying a drink here and there, and then I'm like, okay, well, now I love these Michigan beers, and it's like I have this like connection to them, and I obviously don't really, other than the fact that I grew up here. But anyways, I brought over a couple beers from Bell's and from Shorts, and I actually really ended up liking both those. I had like a strawberry shortcake beer from Shorts, and then just double cream stout from Bell's, but that's besides the point. It doesn't feel quite the same talking about what I'm drinking without the other guys here. But yeah, we ended up playing some Mario Kart, and we started with the newest 8 tracks first. And actually, after that batch, I was like, oh man, I'm doing pretty good here. I'm in third place out of the 5 of us that were there. And as you know, if you've heard me talk about this before, I'm always last of all the human players. There was one time, I think, I came in second to last, I think, but that might not even be 100% correct. We might have like ended partway through because of a disconnection or something like that. But yeah, I actually won the first race, and then yeah, I was doing pretty well. But then once we really got into, I was hanging in there a little bit once we were still playing all the DLC tracks because we just worked our way backwards all the way to the very first cup. But yeah, by the time we got to like the core tracks that those guys have played like a million times over and over, at least quite a bit more than I have, like they're just smoking me. I ended up in last place by a long shot. Like I think I was like 400 or 500 points behind first place, which is ridiculous, almost shameful. But at the same time, it's like these guys have played so many hundreds of hours of this game. I can't let it get to me, but it was definitely a marathon. Like by the end of it, especially, you know, knowing that I was out of the out of the hunt, it was kind of like, okay, let's just plow through these guys. But it still was a ton of fun, and it's still so awesome that Nintendo has supported this game for so long. And I'm kind of like, we were talking about it when we were leaving. I was like, what? And I'm sure we've talked about this on the podcast too, but it's like, what are they going to do with Mario Kart after this? Like they can't, they can, but I can't really see them just being like, here's Mario Kart 9 with, you know, 8 sets of tracks or even 16 sets of tracks, because it's like, man, look at this huge package. Like, how can we start over from scratch again unless they do something totally new, fresh, or different, which Nintendo loves to do. But at the same time, it's just a little bit, I don't know, it'd be a shame to not have them just keep building on this package. But at the same time, it would be cool to see them do something new with Mario Kart, because we were talking about, too, with all the, like, playing the levels that were from the original game last, you really see how much they lean into like that vertical, like wall riding, hovercraft mode or whatever you want to call it. And it is kind of like disorienting, the camera, the way it moves around. You just you got to kind of let like the track almost like just pull you in the direction when you go up these vert ramps and stuff. And like, I don't know, I would like to see what they would do next. I don't know. I'm curious, I guess I should say, is all. And then really the only other game that I've been playing, which I'm not going to talk a ton about because we probably will dig into it once all the guys are here. But I've also been playing a bunch of Super Mario Brothers 3 on the NES, just actually on like the Switch Online service, mostly because I've mentioned it, and Randall as well. Like we've mentioned it so many times while talking about Super Mario Brothers Wonder. And again, I've played Super Mario World so many times, and I was thinking like this game has a little more of a Mario 3 feel or flavor to it to me, but I also don't have that game like baked into my brain. I've definitely beat it a number of times, but like Mario World is like a yearly event that I rip through that game, all 96 exits, if not more frequently than that. Where Mario 3, I definitely do try to like clear each individual stage in the game, no whistles or anything like that. I did as a kid, of course, but yeah, I've been having a lot of fun. I'm on World 8. It is like, I still definitely vastly personally prefer Super Mario World, but Super Mario 3 definitely is a really charming game. And the fact that they were able to get all that stuff pulled off on the NES, like looking at Super Mario Brothers 1 to the, you know, the leaps and bounds that they made to Super Mario Brothers 3, like the way the gameplay feels, it's just so smooth. The gameplay, like the level design is just like a little bit more frustrating at times and like a little less, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for is, but it's just like a little less, it's more like about like nailing these super tight jumps and like dodging, which Super Mario World gets that way too, where it's almost like bullet hell style I've talked about before, where you're like dodging all these enemies and piranha plant fireballs and stuff like that. And you're definitely doing that in Mario 3 as well. But something about maybe it's just like a little easier to use the cape to kind of navigate that stuff than it is to use the raccoon suit to kind of flutter around. It's a very similar mechanic, but the fact that you just have to kind of like keep tapping and just the way the flying works, I guess, is a little different. But I still don't think that's the main reason or anything like that. But yeah, I really have been having fun playing through this one. I started getting stumped on like, I was ripping my way through. But once you get to like World 5, 6, even World 4 a little bit, things start getting pretty tough. And then, yeah, 7 and 8 really start ramping up the difficulty. And again, a lot of times as a kid, I would just like get the whistles, warp to World 3, warp to, kind of cruise my way through the game and just get to World 8. And then it's like, okay, well, I definitely don't have the chops to beat these levels now. But anyways, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It is cool to see like how much, as much as I was saying, like I really think Mario Brothers Wonder almost feels like not a sequel to Mario 3, but it really feels like they were like pulling heavily from that game in particular. But now that I'm playing it, I'm like, no, it feels like a really pretty good balance between Super Mario Brothers 3 and Super Mario Brothers Wonder, and a bunch of fresh ideas as well, obviously. But yeah, I really, really have been enjoying playing through that one again. It's kind of been a while, and it's always nice to just be able to fire these up on the Switch and, you know, easily just save my progress and whatever. So yeah, it's been a ton of fun. But on that note, I think I can kick it over to Randall and I for the rest of the chit chat here. Yeah, we got pretty much all video game stuff coming up here. So yeah, until next week, we will catch you then. And until then, take care. There are a ton of games sitting on my shelf that I'm ready, or shelf, you know, quote unquote digital shelf that I'm itching to stream too. Cause like a couple of like our pals like that Johan Pites sent over one of his, I think he already actually has a new Pico 8 game coming out.
Nice.
That looks like some kind of cool puzzle game that looked kind of like, it looked cool. It looked interesting. It looked, I don't know how to explain it. It looked kind of physicsy, and you were like dropping like these balls that looked, again, like kind of physicsy or weighty, but they were like actually like planets and moons and whatever. And then they were like dropping and chaining together and creating combos. But then he released another like kind of just like, I'm assuming mini kind of Metroidvania platformer thing. If not, it might just be kind of like a, you know, maze style platformer, maybe even just traditional platformer. I don't know. But like he reached out and sent that our way. And then
That's
Ando
awesome.
just put out a new game of his own. Ando's going for that quadrilogy of platformers with like the Go-Go Pogo Girl developer.
Oh yeah.
Just put out a new one called Kid Bubblegum.
Okay.
And it was funny. It was like the day that I was like, okay, I'm finally gonna get back and like log onto the Discord, because like every day that I would like wait and be like, okay, I'll log in and I'll check it tomorrow, and then I'd be like, oh man, there's probably so many messages. I'll check it tomorrow. Like it's gonna take so long to get caught up. I'll check it tomorrow, and then eventually I was just like, okay, today I'm going on, and then I had a message from Ando, so I messaged him too, and he was like, "Oh man, I just released Kid Bubblegum today," and I was like, "Oh, what are the chances of that?"
That's awesome.
Just hopped on the computer today, so.
Ooh. I love the aesthetic of that too. That's sweet.
Yeah, it's definitely. He's always got that like really like, I feel like he really captures that like Sega Master System era vibe really well.
Or even like higher end like DOS stuff almost, and some of the color palette going on too. Like I like it a lot.
Or even like a Game Gear game almost, with like the palettes, especially with this game in particular.
For sure.
I played
totally
just like I played like one level of it just with like keyboard control. Like I didn't even pull out my controller, but it was already feeling awesome. Like I really do love all the 3 games of his that I've played with Spear DX. I think I've actually played a couple of his other like earlier Game Jam and like free to play games too. But Go-Go Pogo Girl, Spear DX, and just regular Spear too. But Spear DX just being like a souped up version of the original, with more levels and stuff. A few you know, souped up features, and then that Chibi Ninja. What is that called? Chibi Ninja Shino-kun Treasure of Demon Tower or whatever.
Yeah.
Which was the most recent game, and I just found out that game is coming to Switch as well, which I'm super pumped about. I know Pogo Girl is out on Switch as well already, so I'm like, oh man, Ando's on a little bit of a roll here. I'm pretty excited that he's getting rolling. I think on Kid Bubblegum, I think he did everything. I think this is the first one he did like all the music on.
Nice.
Which I think it was like, to me, sounded crazy. Like he apparently was like just learning. Like he was like, oh, I just downloaded this program, learning how to make music, or like right now. And then it sounded like I was like kind of playing catch up in the Discord, so I don't know if I read every message fully and maybe misinterpreted what he was saying, but it sounded like I interpreted it as he was saying like, I'm making the music for the game.
Shoot.
So, and it sounded pretty, you know, I played for 5 seconds, but it, you know, it had retro flavor. You know, it sounded, it had that retro kind of like janky, you know, kind of like rigidness, if you will. You know how like some of those retro songs have that, but like it sounded purposeful to me. So like, you know, it didn't sound anything out of place. Like, oh man, sounds like a rookie making some music here. It sounded like, oh, this is perfectly fitting for the game going on here.
I love that.
But I am curious about it too, because I will say that on the previous games, I don't know about so much on Spear DX now that I think about it, but on Go-Go Pogo Girl and Chibi Ninja, I remember the music kind of standing out specifically in those games, particularly in Go Go Pogo Girl.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see if Ando channels a little bit of that composer's juices there.
Ando's got like 10 games listed on here on the Itch.io page. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Goodness.
I know another one is, I might have even talked about it on the podcast, Magnet Man Adventures.
Yeah.
Back in the day when I would just like fire off like 5 indie games on one episode.
Which is, that's great.
That was a really fun one. And he like every time, because I put a video out for that one and he was like, oh man, why'd you cover that game? It's garbage or whatever. It's like, I was like, I get what you're saying in the sense that like I can see where if I was the one who made this, like there are some bugs and some flaws in it.
Probably
like,
just an early game
you can find, but like this is a really good game that like if you polished up this concept, you easily could make a game of the caliber of any of the 4 platformers that you've released recently that I really like a lot.
Right.
You could easily make a game, you know, if as long as you have enough good ideas, which it seems like as soon as he comes up with a gameplay concept and a little twist on it, he's like chock full of, you know, because I think all the games actually no Go Go Pogo Girl actually it was a little bit of a shorter game in terms of like the number of levels.
Yeah.
But like Spear DX I think has like 100 levels in it.
Jeez.
For the most I think there's a little bit of scrolling, but you know for the most part they are kind of single screen levels.
Yeah.
But they still take a little bit of time to complete, especially once you get a little later in the game. But yeah, like, and same thing with that Chibi Ninja game too. Has had like either 80 or 100 levels. So it's like man. And I think this game has 80 levels too. Kid Bubblegum. I think Pogo Girl had only like 12 or something, but they were a little bit longer for sure.
Jeez.
Yeah, that game was broken up a little differently because it was like I think you just played through the 4 seasons. It was like spring, winter, summer, and fall.
I love that too.
Obviously not in that order as I list them in some weird janky order.
I love that.
Yeah, it's that game's again. They're all awesome. I probably I never finished Chibi Ninja, but I probably would say Spear DX is my favorite just because there's so many good ideas in that game.
Yeah.
For the most part, kind of bouncing. You know, kind of. I mean, there are some new things introduced, but like for the most part, it's all built on just the idea of you throwing this one spear into the wall that can stick into it, then you could then jump on as a platform.
Which I love the concept of.
Yeah, and that's all. Like, there's so many. Like, then later in the game, there's like again, I think I talked about this one on the podcast too. But like later in the game, there's like a slime wall, so you like throw your spear and it does still stick in the wall, but it like slowly slides down the wall. And you're like riding it like an elevator and jumping before you hit the spikes. Like, oh man, just again, he like kind of like I'm sure we'll dig into if we talk about some Mario tonight, but like kind of like just digging it, like taking that one mechanic and just really kind of running with it, you know?
Did you see that he did these like the Sega Genesis tutorials and development kit stuff and like oh my gosh.
I know that was like kind of a thing. I don't know how much he does of it anymore. He may still be going full tilt. I just know I've talked to him a few times about it where he's like, I like, you know, he's like, I spend so much time doing this, and I know people like it, but he's like, but I do want to spend more time on like my games.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, so he's like,
it looks like it's on hiatus, at least per the website. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's incredible. It's like all out here. Wow.
Yeah, I know he does a lot of like translation work and stuff. I don't know if it's strictly for video games. Maybe it's stuff outside of that too. But yeah, definitely making a good go at you know, the full solo dev thing. I know he's really trying to make that work. So
right.
And he's definitely got the chops. I'm really a big fan of his games. Again, I haven't played any of Kid Bubblegum really. But just the 2 seconds of it that I did play, I was like, all right, because. You can shoot out, you have your little gun, you shoot out bubbles, and then you can then jump on those bubbles as like a little, you know, bubble platform.
Love it.
It's kind of similar to Mario Wonder, I guess, too.
Of course.
But it had a thing where like if you time the hop on the bubble just right, you basically do like a super jump, like double the height off of it. So already I'm like, okay, I know he's going to clearly do some cool puzzle platforming or just, I guess, arcade precision platforming.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't know. Definitely pumped to check that game out. Play some more of that one.
That's sweet.
Yeah.
More games need to take from the Bubble Bobble tree that way.
Yeah.
It's good.
Definitely. Good old Bubble Bobble. Yeah, it's what that Devil World was kind of reminding me of a little bit. That main character reminds me of the Bubble Bobble characters.
Miyamoto's first console game.
I didn't know that was his first. I knew it was him, but I just thought it never came to North America because of the devil imagery and stuff.
Yeah, because the devil and the imagery in it. Yeah,
such an evil game. I'm just so corrupted when I play it.
It was okay for Europe release over time, but not North America.
That game is sweet though. Have you ever played much of that game? Like
literally. Besides, I've watched footage of it, and I'm like, I'm going to get this game at some point when I see it in person, and then I did. But like I said, I couldn't play it because it wasn't hooked up to my like current TV stuff because we're still moving those things around. But but then I saw like, oh shoot, it's on the Switch Online. Oh my God, Nintendo finally acknowledges it for release in North America after all these years, like 40 years on practically. And then like that's basically, I think that I booted it up a little bit after you were talking about it in the Discord. I think it might have been the first time I ever actually played it and not just watched it. And I'm like, oh no, this is, and I'd watched it before where like, your area of movement is like being pushed around by the barriers on the side of the screen and like.
Yeah, I never had noticed that before.
Yeah. There's some interesting, obviously you can be derivative and say it's like a Pac-Man clone, but it's got its own ideas.
It's got its own fresh twists. Yeah, I definitely in the footage that I had seen, like I had never registered that like the gameplay field was shifting and that the other stuff that goes on, just the slight tweaks of like you haven't have picked up the cross or whatever to pick up the pellets and stuff. Like I had just written it off as like, oh, it's just a Pac-Man game made by Miyamoto. And just like never really thought, like, I'm sure it's cool and fun and charming, but never really thought it like had some fresh ideas of its own, But obviously I should have known.
Yeah.
But
oh, yeah. That was just like always on my radar. I'm like, I don't have many Famicom cartridges, but I'm going to get this one when the opportunity arises.
And God, that box art is awesome.
It's so good.
Sticker label is just as good. Yeah.
It's so good. I love that box art so much. I was actually Googling earlier to see if like Miyamoto himself was the one that did that art or not, but I couldn't get a straight answer on that.
Okay, that'd be cool. Yeah, I didn't know he was an artist like that.
Yeah, that's kind of like what he did at first before game design.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Which made me think, well, maybe he did.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I don't know. I always I kind of got it confused, like because that like Devil World, whatever that main character's name is that you play as, like it kind of reminds me of that frog that they show on that Ninja Jaja Maru game. Yeah. Like it really looks similar to that. Yeah. Box art. So I was like, man, I hardly like keep those two games straight, even though they're obviously kind of different. But really that good. Ninja Jaja Maru game. Not feeling it. I talked about that on the Save It for the Cast recently. I was just like, shouldn't say not feeling it, but I keep like hoping because I know they made that remake. Yeah. Or not remake, but whatever. It's like it's not made by the team. Yeah. But yeah, they have that like new like version that's on there, and it's supposed to be good, but it like I don't know. I was like, I know it has some tie to the team that made those Wild Guns and Pocky and Rocky, but I think it's just the publisher. I don't think it's the development team. So I think I did a little digging. I was about to buy it one time. I was like, oh wait, it's not the same developers. I was like, because those games are just made with so much polish and love. And
I know
care, and it's like this game. Well, I'm sure maybe not. I don't know, but. I was like, it just doesn't look like it's made with that same level of detail. Yeah,
because Inin was on a roll with, maybe they're just the publisher and not as much the developer on some of these, but like, they're on a hell of a roll there.
Yeah, definitely. And they've even published some pretty cool, like just regular old indie games too. So I shouldn't say regular old, but I think they published at least the physical version of like Star Renegades on Switch and stuff like that. So right, exactly.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Star Renegades.
Yeah, Star Renegades. That one, it's still sitting in my Amazon cart because it's only like $21 on Switch, and I'm always like, I should scoop that because that was one of those I played on Game Pass and never like purchased, and now I'm like, oh, well, I don't own that game technically, so $21 for a physical copy, and it is a roguelike technically, but it is like way more campaigny than a traditional roguelike. So I'm like, that's one where I could definitely, I wouldn't need to have it like at the ready, like down well to like, oh, I would want to have that right on my system, you know?
Right. That game's so beautiful. It's,
God, it is so awesome looking. God. Just
I
like
forgot.
the layers. Did you play much of that game? Did you play a little bit of that?
No, actually I haven't like at all.
Okay.
I've just watched like the trailer and seen gameplay footage here and there. But it's always been on my radar.
It's a really cool game. I know I talked about it at some point too.
Yeah.
Like it's good, like just like the layers of the gameplay. It's got like a very nice mix of like Into the Breach meets Slay the Spire.
Oof.
Kind of like strategy to the gameplay.
There's no excuse. I should have played it by now.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff. There's almost a little too much going on at times, but it's like it's still sweet.
Yeah. I forgot that Inin also announced, and it's still not available yet for pre-order, but they're doing the remake of Shadow of the Ninja, which is a pretty well received NES ninja game.
I think that's on the NES Online. Is that from Natsume?
Yeah.
Yeah, that game is actually pretty cool. I remember firing that up and thinking like, oh man, Natsume is an underrated.
Oh, big time underrated.
Yeah.
Natsume's that 8-bit era into 16-bit
I was just gonna say,
era.
Especially the NES. Like, yeah. I don't know if I know as many of the 16-bit ones. At least if I do, I don't know them off the top of my head. But
did they do Ninja
but I guess
Saviors? Was that them?
I don't know. Actually, it might be. Actually, I think it might be.
I might be talking out of turn on that. Maybe that was just Taito and not Natsume.
Oh. Yeah, it might be Taito.
Yeah. Both? The developers, at least on the remake, both Natsume, Atari, and Taito are both listed.
Okay. So
take that with what you will, I guess.
Maybe one of them bought the other at some point. Maybe Atari owns all of them at this point.
Whatever Atari is, yeah. Yeah, another thing I didn't mention, and as we've already recorded for this long, is like I tried to, I'm like, oh yeah, they put like that Resident Evil like Mercenaries 3D on 3DS, like, and I bought basically any interesting thing on the 3DS eShop, especially if it was discounted before it closed, and like, that was one thing that I grabbed at one sale at one time because it's Capcom, so of course they put it on super sale.
Yeah.
And I booted it, I think, for the first time today before we started recording, and I'm like, oof, like it actually looks pretty decent for being 3DS, but like holding that in my hands, like because I've got the smaller like new 3DS, and I was like, oof, like this is already starting to cramp my hands to like play an action game. Like I don't even know if I'm going to make it through this tutorial level, let alone anything else. But it is a whole other Mercenaries game on the 3DS of all consoles.
Yeah.
You know,
3DS
although
is a beast.
It was early enough that I didn't see any ability to use like that. They added that second like right analog nub
that little
thing.
Dongle. Yeah.
But it was an early enough game that I don't think they ever patched in the ability to take advantage of that. So that's even more awkward for a game like that. So
like a 3D game,
yeah. So I don't know if I'm actually going to go back to that, but
yeah, that's a shame. But at least you snagged it on the cheap and just have it on there on the off chance you feel like firing it up.
I mean, let's say it looks at least like an Xbox 360 level graphical game. It's kind of impressive considering, it's, but now that I'm playing what I'm playing on the big TV and the new system, it's a little tough to go back to.
Yeah. Sometimes those like handheld versions, like when they're kind of a more primitive version of the console version, it's just like, this is cool that it exists, but I do have the console, so I don't need to play this version.
If the ergonomics were just like a little bit better, I probably would stick with it just a little bit more. But if it's going to hurt me too, that's like one step too far.
Yeah, even that new 3DS is like a little bit cumbersome to hold and just grip after a while.
It is,
because you got to have it
unfortunately.
propped at the right angle to get that effect, and then it's like that. Just you have to hold it so tightly, and yeah.
Tough with the big mitts.